In March of 2024, I began the painful process of a divorce. I thought the end of my marriage was also the end of all my hopes and dreams. When I took a step back and recognized my relationship for what it truly was, I realized it was holding me back from achieving so many of my goals and ambitions. I chose to take my pain and use it as fuel to create the best, most positive life for my 2 young boys and I. Since then, I've crossed items off my bucket list, improved my health, laughed more than I have in years, did things I never thought were possible, and made unforgettable memories with my family and friends. I now envision my future being brighter than it has ever looked before. I'm here to share my journey and bring guests on to tell their stories of how their painful situation turned out to be a redirection in life. Welcome to the Pain into Positivity podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny, and you're listening to the Pain into Positivity podcast. And I'm here with a longtime friend and former coworker, Cherisse Fortunato.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
And we used to work at a radio station together, and you were technically my boss.
I was. Can I tell you something quick?
Oh, yeah.
When
Please.
I realized, so now your sister is my boss.
I was going to say, now we know each other because of my sister.
Oh my gosh. And when I put it together that you were Heidi's sister, I was like, oh my God, was I a good boss to Jenny?
Yes.
What stories have Jenny told Heidi? Like, what does Heidi think of me?
Oh my God, that was the best job ever. We had so much fun. The concerts.
Oh my God. It was wonderful. I loved it.
We're here today
to
talk about your pain into positivity experience. You took something extremely traumatic and painful, and you chose to spread awareness about it. You chose to talk about it. In 2009, you had a really life-changing thing happen to you. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I lost my brother to suicide in 2009. He had always suffered from depression. It was not his first attempt. So it was always something I worried about. And he had, good days and bad days. In November, it just took over.
Yeah. You struggle, I know, with the guilt.
Yeah, and I struggle because at that point in our lives, we didn't have the best relationship.
Yeah.
Brother, sister, it was more like arguing, not like friendly.
Yeah.
And so we never spoke about it. He was in the hospital for a few days. He came home and we all pretended like nothing happened. And the guilt I hold on to is that as I grew up, I had opportunities to talk to him and ask him and learn more and try to understand. And I didn't take those opportunities.
Yeah. What do you wish you would have said to him?
Or
asked him.
Yeah, I guess I wish I would have been open to listening to him so that he would feel open to share. He did feel comfortable sharing with my sister. My sister's older than him, so I think that was helpful. I was looked at as the little sister, who's just annoying.
Oh my God, I'm the little sister too. It's so hard. No, it's fun now, but when you're little, yeah.
Right. Like you're not invited to the party.
Yeah, they were cooler than you. They yes.
So yes, he had those conversations with my sister, and we just didn't have that relationship. So I guess there was a moment in our life where the opportunity was present for me to ask him, and I chose to play it safe and just not ask him.
Okay.
And I don't know what I would say. I would just ask why, and I think just by being open to listening would have created a dialogue so I could better understand him.
Yeah.
And if I could better understand him, maybe I could have been there for him more,
Yeah. Now, who would be, I know in my experience, I had people, like I had my people, my village.
Yeah.
Who would you say really helped you through that, and how did they help you through that? Like if you were talking to someone that knows someone that lost someone that way, how did you want to be helped? How did you want to be supported?
Yeah. Here's one thing I remember is in the days right after, we were inundated with people and food and cards, and every day the mailbox was full, and that was so encouraging. You just to know that there was support. And we went through, 2 days of having a wake and then the funeral. And then we had this brunch right after. And it was like a giant party because all of our loved ones and everyone who loved us and his friends, our family, were all there. And when it was over, everyone left. I remember being in the banquet hall and I looked around, and this huge crowded room was empty, and I don't know who I turned to, my sister or my husband, and I was like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like, what does life look like now? We're just expected to go on, and that was really hard.
Yeah. Everyone kind of moves on with their life, and yours just crashed.
Right.
Yeah. I remember standing in line for his wake, and I remember how busy. I think we stood in line for an hour and a half. Yeah. I just remember there being so many people there, and then just to have everyone just to go about their lives after that. That's so hard.
Right. And I think that happens to everyone who loses someone, right? Yeah. Doesn't matter how you've lost them. You have like 2 to 3 days of just all this love and support and encouragement, and then everyone goes back to life.
Yeah.
So the people who helped me, definitely my sister, it was so nice. We kind of processed it together because we were the only ones who lost a brother. You know, my parents lost a son, his friends lost a friend. But we knew we were experiencing the same loss. We lost our brother. And she's also a psychologist, so...
Well, that's helpful.
It was very helpful.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I leaned on her a lot, and it was my core friends. My high school friends, they were there the day after we found out Justin had passed away. They were there with me all night. And then, obviously, after everyone left, they kept checking in.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It was not like checking in, the next week or the next couple weeks. It was we got together all the time. And then every year, my friends know when the day is, and they check in on me.
Oh, I love that.
And just
that's so important to have.
Yes.
And it's nice to know that people still remember after, 16 years?
Yeah.
16 years this year. Yeah, it's so wonderful that people still remember.
It's nice to know that this day that was so significant to me is not lost on those who are closest to me.
Yeah.
And it's a great support.
So just always checking in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember one year, my friends were like, let's do something. Like, let's celebrate. Because that, the time comes in November. So it's kind of tricky because we lost Justin on November 4th, but his birthday is on November 13th. Oh. So I hate November.
Oh my God, November's a tough month.
November's the worst month because it's like there's 2 big moments. And so instead of focusing on the sadness of losing him, we turned it into something joyful and focus
celebrate the life he lived.
Yes.
That's huge.
Exactly.
I think that's so important. So I know you also, though, have really funny stories about Justin.
Yes.
I know that I didn't know Justin. I wish I did because he sounds really funny. I want you to tell them about the cruise story. The cruise story is the best story.
Okay. So this is interesting. So Justin, to back it up, Justin was a poker player and really good at it. Mm-hmm. So he went to the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas, which was awesome.
So cool.
My family, we saw him, and he did pretty well. And so with that money, he decided to take me, my sister, and his girlfriend at the time on a cruise. Which, I wish in my 20-year-old brain I realized how special that was.
Yeah, I wish my sisters would take me on a cruise. Heidi, Heather, take me on a cruise.
That was so nice. I just was in my own world that I didn't step back and be like, wow, you're going to treat me to a cruise. Okay, great. So we go on this cruise, and it's, all you can drink. And Siobhan and I think we were supposed to meet up with Mary Beth, his girlfriend at the time, and him for dinner. And they didn't show up for dinner. We're like, where are they? And he was busy drinking and bidding on some art auction. And we're like, so we're on the cruise. We're like, where were you? You weren't at dinner. And he's like, well, we went to the art auction. I'm like, what would you have gotten? You're not into art. And honestly,
you are when you're drinking.
I guess so. He's like, I don't know. It'll be fine. So we come home from the cruise because you don't take it with you. It gets shipped to your house. A couple weeks later, these big pieces of art come to the door. He opens it up. It's literally Looney Tune characters, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck posing with MLB players.
What did he do with it? Did he hang it up?
He hung them up.
He did.
In his room.
I love this.
And I was like, he was a fan of baseball, but Looney Tunes? Where?
That's funny. Well, my cousin was over recently, and he even told me a story how your brother was playing baseball.
Yeah.
And your dad was like, come on, Justin, come on. And Justin hit a line drive to his knee, and your dad fell to the ground.
Yep. Sounds right.
And then Justin was yelling, come on, Dad, get up. Like,
Yes.
So, again, I didn't know him, but the stories that I hear about him, you said he was a prankster.
Yes.
He loved to prank your mom with the olive juice.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, tell him about the olive juice.
Okay.
I love
First
a good
of all,
funny story.
I want to take credit for this because it was my prank, but it went wrong. I tried to pull it on my brother. Yes, let me just say that Justin was like the class clown of the class clowns. And like I call him our family entertainer because he would just make us laugh. Like he would annoy us and then just make us laugh so we'd forget about it. So we were having dinner and we usually drank pop with dinner. And I also was opening up black olives because we were having black olives that night. I poured some black olives into my cup. And we sat down for dinner, and what I wanted to do is fool Justin. And so I like pretended to drink it. I was like, something's off with this. And I pass it to Justin. I'm like, is this Pepsi flat? But I'm not a good actress. So he read it all over my face. He took one whiff of it. He's like, I know what this is. I was like, oh man. Well, not more than 3 minutes go by. My mom comes in. She's like disheveled. She just had a long day of work. She comes in. He runs to the door with the pup. Mom, try this Pepsi. What's wrong with this Pepsi, Mom? And so she's like, she can't even think. She takes a sip, a big gulp, and she's got olive juice in her mouth. She's like, oh my God. She runs over to our sink that Justin had taped the little sprayer on.
For April Fools.
Not intending for it to go like this. She turns on the faucet to rinse out her mouth and gets sprayed directly in the face. Best prank that ever went down.
Oh my God, I really do. I wish I would have known him because he sounds hilarious. Do you feel that the memories of him do help you get through and carry on? And do you see anything in him in your girls?
Oh, yes.
You do?
I do.
Oh.
It's so sweet. So Ellie, my firstborn, her middle name is Justine.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And she is similar to Justin because she's such a sensitive, kind soul.
Yeah.
And as being Justin's sister, I didn't see that, but everyone speaks about it. You know, my older sister could see like how sensitive he was. I mean, he was always mean to me, so I was like, "You're not sensitive. You're a big old jerk." But he was very sensitive. But Julesy, my youngest one, she reminds me of him all the time. She makes these bizarre faces and weird noises, and I'm like, you're Justin.
I've met her. She's like your spicy one.
She is.
She's your spicy one. I can just tell. I can just tell from like meeting her twice, I think.
I don't know if we're gonna cut this or not, but
What? Oh my God, what?
So my girls, I always joke, if they're at a college party, Ellie's gonna be in the corner like crying, trying to get Jules to leave, and Jules will be doing a keg stand.
We are not cutting that. We are leaving that in there because that is great.
That is like my girls.
That is great. I feel like the same about my boys. Like I can pick which one would be doing both.
Yeah.
So what would you say, because you seem like you took Justin's suicide, and one thing I really thought was inspirational of you is that you were willing to share it. A lot of people don't want to share that, and I think by you sharing it, you've connected with people. You've connected with people that may feel a certain way, that now people maybe talk to you. Maybe you've met certain people along the way. Can you tell me why you chose to share that and how it's helped you and other people?
Absolutely. So I will tell you that when he passed away, I went the whole day without texting a friend. I did not want to tell anyone.
Yeah.
I was so full of shame that this is the way my brother passed away. My sister was out of town. She flew into the airport. I picked her up at 9:30. You know, we're crying, we're embracing each other. And she's like, who have you spoken to? And I was like, what do you mean? Well, what friends have you told? And I was like, I haven't told anyone. And she's like, why wouldn't you? This is who you need. You need your friends.
Yeah.
And so I did. I sent a text out to 3 of my closest friends. And I think it was that moment of like, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And through time and learning more about the disease, I realized what stigma is attached to it. I hated that. I didn't want my brother's life to be defined by a moment. And there's a lot to it. So the terminology has been he committed suicide. But that is not true. If he had died by cancer, you wouldn't say he committed cancer.
Yeah.
He died by suicide. And in the simplest terms, the way I used to explain it to my daughters when they were younger and they asked about him, I said, his brain was sick and he passed away. If your body is sick, sometimes you pass away.
Absolutely. I love that you think of it that way, because I think a lot of people even feel like mental health, when you're struggling, you can feel like you don't want to tell anyone. And if anything, you found that it maybe helped you telling people and
yes, absolutely,
and sharing that story.
And so I think it became my goal, because I was very much growing up, my parents had gotten a divorce. I didn't want to talk about it. I was very riddled with shame my whole life. And I just didn't want to be anymore. And I wanted to just get rid of this stigma. And I thought, how can I do that? I can share my story. And you can learn who Justin was and know that he was a wonderful, wonderful person who just happened to have a mental, disease. He suffered from depression, and one day it just took over him. Just like one day cancer can take over a body. So I wanted to get rid of this stigma. The best way I knew how was to post about him on my Facebook page, and I always use the anniversary of the day he passed away as a tribute to him. And as the years went on and I learned more about mental health, I wanted to take what I learned and share it so that it may help others, right? So if someone else is in the situation, I have a lot of suicide survivor guilt. I wish I would have done things differently. I wish we would have had a better relationship. And so I feel like it's because I couldn't have that relationship that I wanted, maybe I can help others have that relationship with someone in their life. And, do the uncomfortable thing. Reach out to someone, even if you don't normally reach out to them. If you feel it, like something's off, then pay attention and ask and listen.
What would you tell people, or anyone that has just lost someone to suicide or has lost someone a long time ago? What can you tell them, or what advice could you give them how to carry on?
I would say everyone's journey is their own. And so the biggest help to me was time. I could not speak these things if this was 16 years ago and a week away. If I was fresh off the loss of Justin, I wouldn't have what I have now. It takes time. Grief takes time. I would also say I can be doing great, life's going great, and one day I hear a song and I've lost it, and I'm back to that day where I found out about Justin. So you can have high highs and come crashing down, and that's okay. And then I would also say, one line I love is, it's okay to be okay, and it's also okay to not be okay. So the day after my brother passed away, my 4 closest friends came to my house, and at one point we snuck up to my old bedroom and we had a couple of beers and we just told Justin stories. And I sat on my bed and I was laughing, listening to the stories, because some of the stories that they had, I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, it hit me, how dare you be laughing? You just lost your brother. And I talked to my sister about that, and she said, Cherisse, if we're allowed to suffer from grief, then you have to give yourself the same allowance to have joy. It's yes and, right? You can grieve the loss, but that doesn't mean you can't also find joy.
You can be happy and sad at the same time.
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes.
Yes. And it sounds like that's what your friends did for you.
Right.
And I like your pine tree reference that you shared.
So this was really cool. I was driving home with my daughters from some errand, and we saw a row of pine trees. And my oldest daughter was like, Mom, I learned in school today that pine trees have to be planted close together to help keep each other up because they have weak roots. So when the wind blows, they kind of lean on each other. And then my other daughter, Jules, is like, oh, it's like the song Lean on Me, which I love. I won't sing it, but I love it.
Please do.
And, I took that in and I was like, those are my friends. I could not stand, and they literally kept me up, right? In the worst days of my life. But they're also there. So I lost Justin in November. I got married in July, which is very hard. It was very bittersweet.
Absolutely.
And my friends were there with me on my bed, crying, laughing about Justin. And then, however months later, that is 8, we danced the night away at my wedding. And those are my pine trees who can love and accept me and celebrate with me and also support me and be there for me.
Yeah. So if you know anyone that's lost someone, I think just being their pine tree. And I know I've had people like that in my life that I'm so appreciative of. And I actually read that in the book that you wrote.
Yes.
I'm going to let you share the title.
Yeah, it's called All In: Lessons Learned Through the Loss of a Beautiful Life.
And why did you name it All In? I know why you named it All In, but I want the listeners to know.
So, like I said earlier, Justin went to the World Series of Poker tournament in Las Vegas. And I was lucky enough to be there to watch him. And there was a point early on in the tournament where he put all of his chips in. And that's called going all in. And if he won, then that's great. But if he lost, he's out of the tournament. I'm like, what are you doing, Justin? It's day one. We have like 3 more days to get through. But I looked at him and he gave me this like little cocky grin, like I know what I'm doing, don't worry. And they flipped the cards and he had a huge jackpot that was his. And that's going all in. Like he put his chips all in and it turned out huge for him.
Got you a cruise.
Got me a cruise.
I know, right? It got you a cruise.
And so I think that's how we need to choose to live life, all in. And what that means is being all in on ourselves. So taking care of ourselves, learning to love ourselves fully, flaws and all. And when we can get there, when we can get to the point to being fully comfortable with ourselves, then we can turn our gaze outward and we can be all in on others. What that means is it's giving people grace for their mistakes. Mm-hmm. And how do we get there? We give ourselves grace for our mistakes.
Absolutely.
Right? If I can say, you know what, you messed up, but that's okay. Then if someone else messes up, I can put myself in their shoes and understand that's okay for them too.
Yeah.
I think it's being vulnerable, which is a big step from where I was when I was a child and kept everything hidden away and I didn't want to talk about anything to now just sharing with the world everything. Like, here, come read my diary. And I think most importantly, it's about paying attention. And being all in, paying attention. So I think we live in a world where we spend a lot of time looking at our phones and just, what is this gesture? I'm doing? Scrolling through, seeing everybody's perfect life because that's what's on Facebook. And you're missing it. You're missing the small details. So maybe you missed holding the door open for someone who could really use the door being held open for them. Or maybe you asked someone in passing, hey, how are you? But you're not really listening to them. And maybe they needed someone to stop and say, hey, how are you? So that's what all in means for me.
And I got the pleasure, and I'm honored that you asked me to read the manuscript.
Yeah.
And what I will say about your all in book is that I cried my eyes out reading the first chapter. And you told me not to read that when I was with my kids. So I read that actually. I left your house. I parked in my driveway and I read it right away. And I cried because it was heartbreaking because you share almost every detail of that day of losing Justin. Yeah. But then I laughed. Mm-hmm. And then I felt there was a few lessons in there that I was like, oh, I feel that. Like, I feel this book is not just for someone that lost someone to suicide. This book is for someone that just wants to even better themselves in life.
Absolutely, yeah.
You truly did. Like, I didn't know you were a writer.
Neither did I.
Who knew when we were in our 20s that you were going to write a book?
Not me.
And so I just really want to tell people to buy this book and read this book, even if you have not lost someone, because it is a good book. It's like an easy read. You said it's how many? I think it's 180 pages.
143.
Yeah. I was going to say, so it's an easy read, which you can ask my sister. I am not a huge reader, but I was very interested because I do remember when you lost Justin, and I remember that time, and I just felt like reading that book was not what I expected. I truly thought it was going to be more about you losing Justin, and it was so much more than that. So after you share all these lessons in your book, you also talk about worrying about being judged or if somebody now expects you to be perfect.
being kind all the time, right? And I'm going...
Nobody can be perfect all the time.
No.
So give yourself grace.
Yes, I talk about the importance of kindness because that is just a huge value for me. And I also recognize that I am not kind 100% of the time. Sometimes I wake up and I am in a bad mood.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's where the lesson of grace comes in, is understanding, like, I am not going to get it right all the time. I am going to lose it on my child every once in a while.
Yeah.
Or every Friday. But that's okay. We're speaking about my book, and yes, the first part is hard, and it is my story of Justin. And I guess the real motivator to write it was because when I became a mom, I wanted to bring these children into a world that is kinder and that pays more attention, so that I can pay attention to them, right? If they ever struggle, I can offer tools to help them through those struggles. I wasn't able to be there for my brother. I just wasn't mature enough. That wasn't my role. But I want to be able to be there for my children. And I thought about these lessons that I wrote, and I want to share it with others so that they can use these tools to be with their children. Because the whole goal is to not lose any more Justins.
Absolutely. So my sister shared with me that you were writing this book, and I came across a sweatshirt online that was Stay Another Day. And so I actually ordered 2 of them. I ordered one for you and one for me. But then when I got them in the mail, I actually was inspired. So you were part of the inspiration of the shirts, the Don't Give Up on You shirts that I made.
Yes.
And then we are actually donating money for every shirt sold in Justin's name and my cousin MJ's name.
That's amazing.
To NAMI. So for mental health awareness, which I think is really important to spread that awareness. And people have bought the sweatshirt, and recently somebody messaged me and said they really needed it because they did lose someone to suicide, and they really wanted to wear it and spread awareness.
Those shirts are building a community, right? Mm-hmm. It's when we wear the shirts, we're spreading a message without even having to say anything. But maybe you look at someone who's wearing the shirt, make eye contact, and smile. And it's just like, I see you. I know you, you know? Mm-hmm. And people, when you feel connected, I believe you are encouraged to keep on going.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to talk about is there's a song called The Comedian by Walker Hayes. And he talks about losing a friend to suicide. The lyrics in the song say, "It's too bad being funny and being happy ain't the same thing." And then there's another line that says, "It's so sad, some of the loneliest hearts in the crowd are the most entertaining." And that song reminds me of Justin.
He was always the class clown, and a lot of times he used his humor to kind of deflect so people didn't see the pain that he carried. And so it's important that even if someone looks like they're the bubbly, happy person, right? Like, everyone has struggles. Mm-hmm. No matter where you come from, how much money you have, how beautiful you look. That's something I learned too. Everybody struggles. So let's not judge a book by its cover, right? Look at someone and be like, well, they're always happy, they're fine, right? Or
yes.
And let's just stop and pay attention more. Ask questions and give the time and space to really listen to someone. I think if you genuinely allow time and space for someone, they will feel comfortable in their own time to share.
Absolutely. So we are going to link your book because it's out now.
Yes.
For people to read and be inspired. And I really hope we get some feedback on it because it is a great book.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing how you turned such a painful experience into an inspirational, positive life that you live now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.